First things first, I'm Jenna Wolfe, alongside Nick Wright, Kevin Wilde, Brian Westbrook is there with us. It is Tuesday morning. We got a lot going on. Coming up in the NBA, Sixers making some big roster changes ahead of the NBA restart. We'll discuss, tell you what those are all about. Did Doc Rivers unintentionally reveal something about Kawhi's health? We will let you know what. And is Tom Brady better than Aaron Rodgers today? To be discussed. But our top story this morning, Dak Prescott and his Dallas Cowboys. Or are they? With tomorrow's franchise tag deadline looming, reports are there are no scheduled talks at this time between the two sides. And there is, quote, not a lot of optimism that a long-term deal will be reached between Dak and the Cowboys. All that being said, our friends over at Fox Bet still have the odds in favor of Dak and the Dallas Cowboys reaching an agreement. All right, Nick, let me ask you this. If you were Dak Prescott, what would you do?
I would wait another 8, 10, 12 hours, and then I would eagerly sign a contract that, aside from Patrick Mahomes' deal, would make me the highest paid player on a per-year basis in NFL history, would guarantee me the most money of any player in NFL history, and then I would call my agent and say, what a masterful job you did here. You moved the Overton window on my contract negotiations so far that folks now think $35 million and $110 million guaranteed is somehow a bargain, when these numbers were first floated a year ago by Jane Slater, I think. Most of us said there is no chance Dak Prescott thinks he's getting $35 to $40 million. At this point, if you were to sign that, folks would write columns saying what a good job the Cowboys did. So if I were Dak, I would be grateful that the conversation has moved as far as it has. I would agree. I would feel that I have wrung as much out of this negotiation as I could, and I would eagerly sign that deal. That's what I would do. That is somewhat of a risk-averse negotiation after he already was super risky last year, playing out the end of his rookie deal, Brian, with no guaranteed money moving into the future. But the fact that he was willing, Brian, to play out last year, to me, makes it much more likely that he's willing to play out this year at $31 million and become even closer to free agency and become only the third quarterback ever to play a season under the franchise tag, Brian.
Yeah, I agree with you. If I was Dak, and I understand how physically rigorous the NFL season is and how aggressive the hits are going to be, I would certainly wake up and sign that contract. I would wait until Wednesday, right before the deadline, and sign the contract. But I also got to imagine I'm a running back, and I think in the running backs terms. And if you're a quarterback and you're protected the way that quarterbacks are protected in the NFL today, and if you're Dak and you started 64 straight games and you bet on yourself, including last year, and you're the 135th pick overall, and you're saying, you know what, last year I put up great numbers, but this year I get a better and more offensively inclined coach in Mike McCarthy. I have better weapons in CeeDee Lamb, and I get a hungry Zeke. And now I come back and I have the same type of stats, but I get more wins. We make the playoffs and potentially we make a run towards the Super Bowl. Now I'm more of a value. Now I have Mike McCarthy going into Jerry Jones's office and saying, listen, we have to have Dak under center. And if I'm Dak, I'm willing to roll the dice again. And that's the hard part. I think that's what Dak is going to be willing to do. I think it's a tough stance to take, but he's bet on himself his entire career. I don't see that changing at this point.
Yeah, I'd stick to my guns and make sure I got the 4-year deal that I wanted. They want 5 years. I would say I want 4 because I want that TV money coming. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of cloudy numbers. The best person who has kind of broken this down is Katie Drummond of USA Today and Cowboys Wire. And he made a parallel from the NFL salaries to the NBA when they got their new deal. So 5 years ago, Katie wrote, Kobe and Joe Johnson were 1 and 2 in the league. They were making about $23 million. Fast forward after these TV deals, Steph's making 40 and Chris Paul's making about 38. And the people that are making 23 are like Gallinari and Ibaka. So it's a world of difference. The salary cap is going to explode once these new deals are. The Facebook and Amazon and Netflix and Google are probably going to get into the game. There's going to be new products with the 17-game season, more playoffs, and the international games are not only about expanding the international base, but also getting that 9 a.m. window, Nick. And you're the gambler of the crew. I'm surprised you're taking the more conservative path here because there's more money on the table if he rolls the dice, Nick.
Because at some point you got to take your profits and get up. And all the negotiation right now, reportedly, is about a 4-year deal or a 5-year deal. If he were to get, if he were to sign right now today a 5-year deal, the deal the Cowboys have out there for him, that takes him through 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, the next 5 seasons. If he plays this year under the franchise tag and then signs a 4-year deal, that would take him through, because 20 would have been on the franchise tag, 21, 22, 23, 24. Either way, he's not going to be negotiating based on the next television deal until he gets to his next contract. And if we're going to talk about reasons the cap could skyrocket, everything that's going on in the world and the uncertainty surrounding it is a reason that in the short term, the cap could dip. But I want Cowboys fans to understand this. If this does not get done by tomorrow and he is going to play the year under the franchise tag, you have to start considering that he is not going to be there long term. There have been 2 quarterbacks ever to actually play under the franchise tag. Drew Brees, his final season in San Diego, because they had drafted Phillip Rivers and it was clear, writing on the wall, he's on his way out. And Kirk Cousins, 2 seasons in Washington, because clearly the coaching staff there, for good or for bad, didn't love him, didn't think he was ever going to be the guy. If Dak plays this year, Brian, under the franchise tag, and he rolled the dice last year, rolled it again this year, then he's going to be in a spot where he says, man, if I do it one more time, I hit true free agency. I'm better than Cousins, and he got a fully guaranteed deal when he hit full free agency. So that's the anxiety for Cowboys fans. It's not about this season. He's your quarterback this season no matter what. But if you play, the limited history we have says if a quarterback plays under a franchise tag, he's not long for the organization, Brian.
I kind of agree with you there. And here's a question for you, Nick. And I think if you're Dak, you have to be asking yourself this question. If I go out and put up the same numbers that I did last year and we win a playoff game or 2, will there be teams, just like the Minnesota Vikings were lining up to try to find a way to get Kirk Cousins, will there be teams trying to find a way to get me? And I think that if you put those numbers up, you win a couple of playoff games, I think that there will be a group of teams that are hunting for Dak Prescott, wanting to get him signed up. And because of that, that's maybe part of the reason that Dak is willing to roll the dice again. As a running back, I'm saying I'm taking my money, I want it off the table, and I want it in my pockets. As a quarterback in this protected league, I think that Dak has some leverage here. And I also think once he signed that franchise deal a couple months ago, or a month ago or so, he said, I'm willing to roll the dice, and no matter what they present, unless it's exactly what we want, I'm not signing it, and I don't see the Cowboys coming back to a 4-year deal.
And, Brian, you allude to and flat out state some of the points of leverage for the Cowboys, and I understand that piece of it. And while I am if I were Dak, I would sign the deal. If I were Dak's agent, I would probably be presenting this to him. Listen, man, no matter what happens here, if you play this year under the franchise tag, it's the Cowboys who are in a bad spot. If you play, and this is what Cowboy fans also need to understand. If Dak plays this year under the franchise tag and you're awesome and you have a great year, then all that happened is his price skyrocketed. The only way, if Dak plays this year under the franchise tag, for Dak's price to go down is if he has a terrible season and therefore the team's not any good. So if you're a Cowboys fan, there is no good outcome that involves Dak with the franchise tag. Either you overstated his value, you're going to get him cheaper, but that's going to mean the first year under McCarthy ends up train goes off the tracks, or he was right about his value with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Zeke, that the team's awesome, they win 12 games, and then $35 million a year becomes $40 million a year. So, like, for Wilds, while I'm advising Dak to sign the deal because I'm anxious on his behalf. I understand his negotiating leverage, and I understand the Cowboys' necessity to get this done so they're not looking at two terrible options next season.
Yeah, the one thing I don't think we're talking about at all is how much money Dak can make by being a Cowboy. Like Tony Romo's making $18 million. Look, would Tony Romo's career have played out differently if he was with the Vikings? Probably.
Right.
Is his star as big if he's not doesn't have the spotlight of Dallas? Probably. Peyton Manning is making $18 million a year. He never played for the Cowboys, but he's a huge star. I think Dak has another level of superstardom when you just look at, like, on paper, like, oh, let's go to the Vikings. I think that's a bad move for his career if he hits free agency and decides to leave.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think we talk about how maybe Dak wants to play out a year or two and then go see what's on the open market. What's the best market in the NFL? Where's the best opportunity to make the most money, the most storied franchise in NFL history? It is the Dallas Cowboys. If you are the face of the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, there's so much money coming in anyway. I think that's such a smart point, Wilds. I think you need to factor that in. All right, we're going to take a little break, talk some basketball where Kawhi Leonard's load management already giving my guy Nick a headache. First things first.
It's a brutal highlight for LeBron.
Sports app. Back here with Chris Broussard. Now we're drawing a blank, guys. Pacers All-Star Victor Oladipo might be making a bubble appearance. Remember, he initially planned to sit out the restart to rehab his injuries. There's now growing belief that he will play after all. So, Nick, Oladipo possibly playing during the restart is blank.
I think this would be the right call. Listen, the Pacers have had a good season. They're a good team. They have the potential, depending on the matchup, to win in the first round. They're not a team that, like the Wizards, are in the spot they're in where they've got no shot whatsoever. And Victor Oladipo suffered this injury 18 months ago, and he has played 13 games already this season. And according to Bobby Marks, it's going to cost him almost $3 million if he doesn't play because this wasn't a season-ending injury. So for all those reasons, Broussard, if he feels good in 5-on-5, I think he's got to give it a go in the bubble.
Yeah, my word, Nick, is appropriate. I look, like you said, he played 13 games. He averaged 26 minutes a game since he had been back in late January. I was surprised when it came out that he wasn't going to play because I was like, wait, you've been playing and your minutes have been increasing and his play has been steadily improving as well. Look, he probably was disappointed. He's averaging like 13 points a game on about 40% or less shooting from the field. So he probably felt like, look, I'm not close to where I want to be. Let me just sit out and get ready for the next season. But over his last 4 games, he played well. 19 points, 45% shooting. You would think that the rest has done him some good. So I think this is appropriate. He should be playing.
Yeah, Broussard, I went with forgotten RSVP. You know when you forgot that you RSVP'd for something like 2 months ago, and then the day comes, you're like, oh, do I have to go to that? And your wife is like, yeah, let's just go for like 20 minutes. We'll say that we went, and it'll be fine. And we get to make that $3 million that Bobby Marks said we're going to lose. The other weird thing about the Pacers is they're actually pretty good without Oladipo. They're 32-20 when he didn't play. So the Pacers are good either way, Jenna.
Yeah, and Nate McMillan said he'll reevaluate him after they get some 5-on-5 work down in Orlando. All right, on to the Clippers, where head coach Doc Rivers said Kawhi Leonard is, quote, healthy for the most part. 2 words, my friends, load management. 2 more words, as usual. Nick, Doc saying Kawhi is healthy for the most part is blank.
I mean, I guess this is just the unfortunate reality, is that Kawhi Leonard has some type of lower body or leg condition to where there are no circumstances that we can construct where he's fully healthy. And by the way, I think the NBA knows this, which is why the NBA, and we haven't talked about this, but in a very odd coincidence, made sure the Clippers were going to be the most rested team in the bubble. What's the team in the NBA with the most games with multiple days in between them? Is it? Oh, it's the Clippers. What's the team in the NBA in the bubble who has the most off days total? oh, it's the Clippers. So the NBA knows that one of their 6 best players is a guy who can't play regularly, and so they're trying to reverse engineer an outcome so that he plays as often as possible. We all already know, pardon me, Broussard, he's certainly not going to play in their back-to-back. And now that home court doesn't matter, he's almost assuredly, I would imagine, going to sit multiple games in the first 8 because seeding doesn't matter so much to the Clippers. So, listen, Kawhi's got some health issue. He came into this season saying it's the healthiest he'd ever been in his career, and then he didn't play on October 30th, the 4th game of the season. So I guess this is just the new normal for Kawhi Leonard, Chris Broussard.
My word is Nick Bait. You've heard clickbait, Nick Bait. Look, this is to get Nick Wright to be like, oh, see, the Clippers, they're not even, forget the Clippers and the Lakers. They're not meeting. OKC, Dallas, Houston, they're going to beat LA in the first round because Kawhi's not right. Although I see some trepidation in you. Nick, I know. I think you're a bit worried now. You see your Lakers kind of falling down. Guys are injured. Guys are, going grudgingly to the bubble. Dwight Howard. I think you're a bit concerned now. But look, Doc Rivers also said there's no limits on Kawhi. I think for the most part was just kind of a figure of speech that Doc just happened to throw out there.
We'll see. Kawhi, so you think he's going to play the back-to-back? You think he's going to play the back-to-back?
No,
oh, okay.
I do think he's got some type of degenerative problem in that patella tendon. So he'll only play probably 6 of the 8 games, but he'll be fine for the playoffs. And the Clippers are going to be trouble, Nick. I'm sorry, trouble.
Yeah, I'll take the under on the 6 games. You got Lakers, Clippers on July 30th, about 2 weeks away from that. Doc Rivers said there was going to be no limits, but he also said we got to get through the 8 games. The other thing we're not talking about is I think these 8 games are going to feel very scrimmagey, very warm-up game feeling. I know we're like all hungry for sports, and we're going to turn on these NBA games. It's going to feel a little bit like Summer League with everyone just feeling it out, knowing that we're like everyone's planning for the playoffs, Jenna.
All right, let's talk some Lakers now. Some roster shuffling in play from head coach Frank Vogel. Says Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will most likely replace Avery Bradley in the lineup. Said he liked the way KCP filled in for him when he was injured earlier this season. So Nick Vogel saying KCP would likely fill in for Bradley is blank.
It's slightly disappointing, and that's not a knock on KCP at all. I think KCP is reliable enough bench scorer that I think he and Kuzma coming off the bench when Dwight Howard gets his minutes could be a good second unit for the Lakers. I would have plugged in Caruso there at least in the beginning. These first 8 games, to Wild's point, matter nothing for the Lakers. They actually tried in the regular season, unlike another team in LA, so they have the 1 seed locked up. So I would like to see how Caruso looks in the starting lineup. His minutes with LeBron, it's been the best 2-man duo in the NBA the past 2 seasons. Alex Caruso and LeBron James, believe it or not. And if it doesn't work, then you know KCP can slide in there because you've seen it. So it's not a surprise, Broussard, but it's a little disappointing. I would have liked to see Alex Caruso get the starting nod there.
My word is unsurprising. And look, I know that Nick now he's throwing Caruso in there with the greats, Jordan Pippen, LeBron Caruso. I mean, can we stop it? My goodness. Look, and KCP is the only choice. The last thing I want to do is throw this young Alex Caruso and put more pressure on him that now he's a starter on the team that's expected to win the championship with LeBron James. Look, keep him in his role off the bench. He can play late in games because he does play well, but I don't want to add the pressure of now you're a starter and we're expecting more from you. Keep him and Quinn Cook in their roles. Deion Waiters and J.R. Smith obviously aren't choices to start. So KCP is the only option.
So look, I thought it was pragmatic. He's 17-3 when he starts. It's it's the pragmatic decision. I would love to see a weirdo lineup with JR and Deion starting. JR started 77 games on your championship team, Nick. It's a weird lineup, but I'd love to shake it up. And I also agree, like Broussard said, I do think that, Nick, you're right, that Jordan and Pippen are the modern-day equivalent is Caruso LeBron. That's a great point by you earlier. You should have Lori clip that for the Instagram.
The NBA guys offering up a bevy of entertainment lately, and the games haven't even started yet. That's because the Orlando bubble activity, at least on social media, has been on point. Nick, the best thing to come out of the NBA bubble so far has been blank.
Richaun Holmes' mother's tweet. Now, we never bring families into this show unless it's complimentary, and this is highly complimentary. If people don't know, Richaun Holmes broke quarantine because he walked across the campus to get some takeout food or pick up his food. So Dr. Ladisha Holmes tweets, "You only crossed the line for your mama's cooking, and I was not in Florida, sir." At Rich Holmes 22, love you, baby. I love it. And by the way, Twitter's mostly a sewer. I perused Dr. Ladisha Holmes' Twitter timeline today. Very positive, very good messages, a little spirituality, a little basketball, a few takes. Pretty good takes, too. So, maybe follow her while her son is having to re-quarantine. So, Broussard, I would say that's the best thing I've seen come out of quarantine. Richaun Holmes' mom's tweet.
That was good stuff. I'll give you that. I got to go with Matisse Thybulle. Welcome to the bubble. I mean, this guy, look, the production quality on his blog, it's I can get it anywhere. It's on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. He's bringing you in-depth stuff. It's some comedy, but he's just bringing you in-depth stuff. He showed you what it was like when they were getting tested for COVID. I mean, I really like this kid, and he's doing some great stuff, so I got to go with Matisse Thybulle.
I agree, Broussard. He should be selling that. He's got to hook up with the guys at the Uninterrupted. That's money he's just throwing away there. I'm going with fishing content. I'm there for the fishing content. If you're on NBA Bubble Life, they can also do a splinter Twitter feed just called NBA Bubble Life Fishing. This is Chris Paul's doing a great job fishing. Boban's caught a fish that you really can't figure out because Boban is so big. Like when he holds an orange, it looks like, a pea. So who knows how big that fish is? And this answers an earlier question of Nick, why the Clippers have so many days off. Paul George is a big fisherman, so they actually did the schedule not for Kawhi's quad and his knee, but actually for Paul George's fishing career. So that's the answer to why the Clippers have so many days off.
You know what wasn't included there? Kawhi, I know he got to the bubble late. He actually went on that fishing trip with Paul George, but after 2 casts, he needed some time. His shoulder was a little sore, so he didn't catch anything. But maybe next time. Maybe next time they go out there. And they have all those days off.
We all saw that one come.
Nick Bates.
Speaking of bubble activity, the Sixers are shaking up the roster to make all the pieces fit. We'll have that on the other side. But first, Blazers bubbled big man Hassan Whiteside requesting your attention. Take a listen.
Look at me. Look at me. I'm the captain now.
MLB on Fox returns July 25th. That's right around the corner. Fox Saturday Baseball. We could not be more excited because baseball is back and because America's home for baseball this summer, as always, will be Fox and right here on FS1. All right, back here with Chris Broussard. Guys, we'll get to the Sixers shakeup in a second. Those 2 words. But first, a home run robbery. Check out Tigers left fielder Riley Green. Watch the catch. The early candidate for catch of the year right there. Wilds, come on. How excited are you? Baseball's it's almost here.
So I'm happy baseball is back. Riley Green's 19. He's the 5th overall pick. He was playing in high school last year. Broussard, half-baked idea for you. Why this play is so great. All fences should be jumpable. There's some fences that are about 14 feet high that you can't get over. All fences need to be that exact height so you can rob the ball. Do you buy that?
I buy it for the most part, although I do like when you see the occasional guy kind of walk up the fence. Like he'll put his foot on the fence and climb it a little bit.
Oh, like Bo Jackson
to make
style.
A catch. But yeah, so I don't want to lose that completely, but this catch was spectacular.
All right, on to some football where we are over the hill. Chiefs wideout Tyreek Hill getting mossed by a high school student at his football camp down in Texas. Nick, I'll ask you this. Generous move by Tyreek or concerning move out of your guy, Tyreek?
Well, listen, Tyreek don't play DB. It's not his job to stop that, but he was trying to, though, and that 10th grader went up and got it. I mean, Broussard, this was not him letting him do it. He's trying to stay with him step for step. He leaps at the right time, and the high school kid just beats him to it, Broussard.
Well, the first thing that surprised me, how'd he get behind Tyreek Hill? How about that? You know, I mean, that was impressive, number one. And the catch was great, but you know where I'm at. The gloves. I'm starting to think I can play in the NFL with these gloves nowadays.
Man.
I mean, my goodness. Is he making that catch barehanded? Is he making that catch barehanded?
Anti-glove.
Are you winning the Iditarod without the dogs? Like, what does it matter? They let him wear gloves.
All right, guys, watch this. Look at this. Lonzo Ball and Zion Williamson, Zoe to Zy, working on their chemistry down in Orlando. I just made that up. Nick, you're a team chemistry guy. Zion looks good here.
Oh, listen, and he looks good, and Lonzo's going to continue to blossom in New Orleans. But, Wilds, you raised an interesting point about a bounce pass on the inbounds and how rare this result is.
Never seen it. Also, isn't it a scrimmage? You don't know that play is coming to defend Broussard?
You're right. I mean, it's not a common play that you see, but look, the bottom line is this tandem, as Nick said, is tremendous. Lonzo Ball's in the perfect place for himself. He's got Zion to throw to, Brandon Ingram, Drew Holiday. I love what they're doing down in the Bayou.
I also love hooded spandex outfits.
Let's get to we knew that about you. To the Sixers shakeup. Head coach Brett Brown revealed this little nugget yesterday, said he's shaking things up on the roster, playing Ben Simmons exclusively at power forward during practices down in Orlando. So with Shake Milton, the starting point guard, once the season resumes. Nick, you surprised the Sixers are tweaking the roster heading into this restart?
Well, I'm moderately surprised. And let me say on the front end, this is probably the right move. This is probably what they needed to do. And Shake Milton kind of burst onto the scene when he had a near 40-point game when they were playing the allegedly great defense of the Clippers, and he just kept hitting threes on them in the second half. And you were trying to find out fits. But this does, to me, put a real exclamation point on the failures of Ben Simmons and a guy everybody likes, but their GM Elton Brand. If you thought there was any chance at all that Ben Simmons' game was going to stay so stagnant that you just have to do what some folks were calling for you to do a couple years ago, which is move him to that dunker spot, move him to the 4, and have a different point guard come in, then you can't, in the same offseason, sign Al Horford and let Jimmy Butler walk. If this was even a 20% possibility, give Jimmy the 5 years he wanted. Don't do the sign and trade involving Josh Richardson. Don't bring in Al Horford, and run with a starting lineup of Shake Milton, or maybe you sign Seth Curry this offseason if you know you have an opening at point guard. Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. But now they're in a spot, Broussard, where they have 4 guys on max or near max contracts, and you can never, there can't be a single minute played where they're all 4 on the court at the same time if Ben's now going to be your power forward. And so, to me, Chris, it's disappointing that Ben didn't evolve, and it's also a bit of an indictment on the front office that they didn't see this potentially coming this offseason when they went and signed Al Horford, Broussard.
Well, it's certainly disappointing that Ben just has essentially refused to shoot. I know he took a couple more threes than he has in the past, but for the most part, he's not shooting the ball. So on paper, this looks good, right? Shake Milton was great in place of Ben Simmons when Ben was out with the back injury. Over his last 7 games, he averaged 19 points, on 60% shooting from three.
Yeah.
So you look at it on paper, you say, hey, Simmons is great as a guy playing down low on the post. I love him down there, but here's the problem. When they have typically had Simmons down, as you call it, the dunker spot, Nick, what has happened? Joel Embiid, the 7-footer, has been pushed out to the three-point line. And we were showing the clip earlier where they had a Sixers practice, and that's exactly what was happening. Brett Brown was telling Joel Embiid, get out here at the three-point line. I hate that, okay? Every once in a while, yeah, it's fine for Embiid to step out and shoot the three. But if he's at a steady diet of being at the three-point line, he might as well be 6'4" instead of 7 feet tall. You nullify his greatest strength, which is he's probably the best big man down low scorer that we have left in the league. So if this is old school basketball, and this reeks of a little bit of desperation, a change like this late in the season, if they want to go old school and play Simmons and Embiid around the paint, they don't have to both be down low. One can be on the elbow. But if you want to play both of them around the paint and then have Tobias Harris and Shake Milton as your shooters, and if you want to throw in Josh Richardson, I guess he hadn't shot it well from three this year, but you got your shooters around your two bigs. Play that way. Play old school. Run when you can. Push it when you can. And in the half court, go old school. That will make you unique. Teams don't know how to deal with that nowadays. And see what that gets you. But if you're going to push Embiid out to the three-point line because Simmons is near the basket, then it's not going to work.
I thought it was interesting that you said it reeks of desperation, because that's what I kind of feel like too, but I think this is the right move. We all know that the Sixers are like a car with duct tape on the window. If you've ever had that, Nick, I know you grew up with beautiful cars, but if you ever had to put some duct tape on your window, it works surprisingly well. But you know it's not the long-term solution. And I think Shake could work. We saw him hang 39 on the Clippers and Patrick Beverley, where I promised I would never say a negative thing about Patrick Beverley, but he did put 39 on the Clippers. He hit 13 straight threes over 3 games, so he tied the NBA record. And we know, like, look, now we've got a traditional point guard. And I know everyone's just like, no, we've talked about this, Broussard. They're 29-2 at home. It's less schematic and more of like a mentality. Like, yeah, maybe. I think that's a valid point. But, Nick, they've only got a 5% chance at winning the title. Brett Brown's job, it can go either way if they get knocked out. I say shake it up. No pun intended. I know we've got it on the bar. Shake it up and give it a shot. And I think these first 8 games, we're going to see if they're going to go this way or not. Again, and that's why I also think these 8 games are going to be kind of boring, because it's just going to be a lot of experimentation from the Sixers.
Listen, I get that they are trying to shake the snow globe to a degree and see if they can get a better result. But, and part of this probably is Brett Brown hitting the emergency parachute, because he knows if they go out in the first, maybe even the second round, he could be gone. But everything Broussard, you and Wilds described works so much better if Jimmy Butler is there instead of Josh Richardson. You described them being able to play old school basketball with no Al Horford. Like, at this point, your 4-year, $107 million, I think it was, deal with Al Horford looks like total wasted money. And the Sixers, I think, fail to recognize this. They have one potentially transcendent player on their team. It's Embiid. And their big struggle is, can we show it? Is when Embiid is out there without Simmons or Horford, they are spectacular. Plus 14 points in their net rating. If he is out there with either one of them or with both of them, they are the definition of a league average team. And I think part of that is because when he is out there without either one of them, to Broussard's point, he is down on the block doing what he is built to do. When he's out there with Horford, he breaks away from the rim more. When he's out there with Simmons, if Simmons isn't playing out on top of the key, he breaks away from the rim more. So I understand why Philly is trying to press this emergency button, but you would like the franchise to have had some foresight this summer, know that this was a possibility, not bring in another big if there was a chance Ben Simmons was going to be moved to that power forward spot, Jenna.
And I echo the point. The season on the line, Brett Brown's job, maybe Elton Brand's job on the line. for this restart. Let's get back to some football where you'll never guess who's got Tom Brady as a top 5 quarterback in the league. I mean, besides Wilds and Giselle, of course. Next on First Things First. Back here with Brian Westbrook. Time for stories to start your morning. And we start with Perfect Pat. Mahomes with yet another accolade for his parents to brag about. Starting the season with a 99 overall rating in Madden 21. Nick, if 99, why not 100, I ask?
Well, they don't allow 100 overalls. They've occasionally had 100 speeds in the game, but they've never allowed 100 overall. Brian, I felt a lot better about this obviously deserved rating until the last 8 hours when I found out that another person in the 99 club, Christian McCaffrey, he's a great player. He might be the best running back in football, but B, yeah, is he at 99? You topped out at a 94 overall. Is he a 99 overall? McCaffrey, Brian?
Well, I'll tell you this. I love Patrick Mahomes and what he's been able to do. MVP, championship ring. And Christian McCaffrey is a great running back. He can do it all, everything that you ask him to do. Is he on the same level as Patrick Mahomes? Absolutely not. I would say he's probably a 94, 95. He's not a 99. And I'm talking about he's the best running back, if not one of the best running backs in the league right now with Christian McCaffrey. He's not a 99. Let's just stop the games right there.
Confirmed.
Okay, we got Gilmore is rumored to be the other person on 99. I don't know if Aaron Donald's official, but Gilmore's going to be a 99 too, Nick. So we've got Patriots in there as well. It's not just a Chiefs love fest on the show.
Well, those guys deserve it, though. Those guys deserve. I'm good with those guys.
Yeah. Okay.
This is an abomination.
Rodgers
This is an abomination.
Yeah, Rodgers' parents aren't bragging about this one. Madden ranked Aaron Rodgers at 89 overall, his lowest rating since 2009. I looked it up before the show just to remind myself. Guy put up over 4,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions last season. Brian, 89, that's not a little low for Aaron Rodgers?
Well, you know what? I heard last segment Chris Broussard mention something about Nick bait, meaning like clickbait for Nick Wright. This has to be Madden bait because there's no way that Aaron Rodgers should have less of a rating than Tom Brady or Drew Brees. When you think about Tom Brady, he's 6 years younger than Tom Brady, and I think he outplayed Tom Brady last year as far as his numbers. You talk about Drew Brees, 4 years younger than him. He's played more games than Drew Brees. He led his team to a 13-3 record and the NFC Championship game. And 2 guys that didn't get that far have a higher rating than Aaron Rodgers. This has to be Madden clickbait. I also got to think that they're looking at the surrounding pieces around Tom Brady and Drew Brees compared to what Aaron Rodgers has. And I think that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers have to do a much better job of getting pieces around him if they want to win more games in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe if they drafted a wide receiver like Aaron Rodgers was basically begging them to do, his Madden rating would be a little higher. Look, I'm buying all the Aaron Rodgers stock you got, Nick. At the same time, there are some troubling stats. His completion percentage was kind of the worst since in the last 5 years. He's off target on 20% of his throws. He's like 4th worst in the league. So there are some concerning stats, except I'm still buying all the Aaron Rodgers stocks you got.
Jenna, Aaron Rodgers might not be peak Aaron Rodgers anymore, but as we're going to talk about here, there were a lot of issues with these Madden ratings. Go ahead, Jenna.
That's right.
All right, so Brian, you touched on it. Let me dive a little deeper. Madden gave Tom Brady a 90 overall rating. It's good enough to land him in the top 5 amongst quarterbacks. Brady beating out the aforementioned Aaron Rodgers, as well as Matt Ryan, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, and ready for this one, Wilds, even Jarrett Stidham. Nick, should Brady still be considered a top 5 quarterback?
No. I mean, my friends at EA Sports, guys, we look to you for some objectivity. We look to you for, some foresight. And unless you're going to say this is some lifetime achievement award for Brady and his GOAT status, forget the number. Forget the number rating. Having him as the 5th best quarterback in football in 2020 at age 43 is a total absurdity. I did my best to give Tom Brady every benefit of the doubt. And the best I could come up with is he's the 13th best quarterback in football. Show the tiers.
Wow.
Best case scenario for Brady.
Tiers.
So we did these quarterback tiers. No, not Madden's tiers. Forget his. Forget theirs. They're erroneous. Show my quarterback tiers. There we go. So I had Brady initially on the too old, too young tier. Let's bump him up 2. Let's say he's better than everyone on that bottom tier, and he's better than all the serviceable guys, Carr, Goff, Jimmy, Teddy, and Tannehill. There is no argument you can make that he's better than anyone in the top 3 levels, and that's 12 different people. And the fact that Madden would have him on the 2nd level, neck and ahead of Deshaun Watson, Brian. Deshaun Watson, ahead of Aaron Rodgers, ahead of Carson Wentz and Dak and Cam and Matt Ryan. I don't know. People sometimes, Brian, criticize Madden because they don't update the game enough year over year. I'm wondering if this year they didn't watch football in 2019. Because that's the only possible argument you could have, Brian, that Tom Brady is still, even tanned Tampa Tom Brady, still a top 5 quarterback.
I have to believe that the people that are making up these ratings for Madden are looking at Mike Evans. They're looking at Chris Godwin, looking at Gronk coming back. You combine with Bruce Arians in a free environment and saying, you know what, we're going to see a better Tom Brady opposed to the guy that we saw up in New England that did not have a lot of help. But I think you're absolutely right. There's just not a lot of throws that I saw last year that say he's a top 5 quarterback. I would not have him in the too young and too old category. I think he's serviceable. I think he may be a franchise quarterback on your list there. Where you put him right next to Cam and those guys. But he's certainly not a 90 rating overall over some of these much better younger quarterbacks like Deshaun Watson that he proved last year.
Look, on this show, I'm the resident Tom Brady fan. In the real world, when we have the Tom Brady fan club meetings, they're in a big theater. I have an obstructed view, and I'm way up in the nosebleeds. So I am a Tom Brady realist, and I'm sorry, Tom Brady is not a top 5 quarterback, according to Madden. Also, I'm sorry, it's true, Nick. I'm a realist. On the show, I'm the biggest fan. But in the real Tom Brady world, I'm way back there. I've got a paper plate. I'm in a tough spot. So here's the thing. But it's my responsibility, because I do have a Tom Brady lifelong fan card. It's laminated, to try to figure out how this happened. So here's what I came up with. See if you buy this. Matt Berry, ESPN Fantasy. I'm trying. Matt Berry, ESPN Fantasy, said in these 16 games where Tom Brady threw 40 times, he was the 6th best quarterback in fantasy. That's the best I could do. I don't think Belichick and Josh McDaniels think he's top 5. I don't think Tom Brady thinks he's a top 5 quarterback, Nick. So I think you are fair. You're a Patriots fan, just like I am. But I think this is an outrageous. Outrageous.
Even if you don't, here's the thing.
It's erroneous.
No, you're right. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. Even if we are discounting age, if we are just going to say this season is going to be the last season of football that's ever played, so you don't have to worry about anybody's long-term just for right now, is there honestly a single Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan that wouldn't rather right now have Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers? Can you imagine? If Bruce Arians was told, hey, this summer you can sign Brady or Rodgers, who do you want? Now, maybe some would argue, Nick, I'd rather have Brady still than Stafford or Cousins. I wouldn't, but so maybe you can tick them up even higher to 11 or 12. But the disrespect, by the way, shown to Deshaun Watson is baffling to me, even more so than the disrespect shown to Aaron Rodgers, because I do think there has been some murmurs in some of the analytics community over the last couple of years that Rodgers has deteriorated more than the media wants to acknowledge. I still see those throws he made in the highlight reel and say there's 2 guys in the world that can make those types of throws, Rodgers and Mahomes. But to me, this is far more based on reputation. And Brian, You mentioned those Tampa Bay weapons. I think with those weapons, there's 10 quarterbacks that they would be better positioned with than the one they currently have, 43-year-old Tom Brady, coming off the worst season of his career.
I would say this. If I'm a Tampa Bay fan, I'm saying, you know what? Tom Brady's a little bit older. We didn't see the production last year because I'm hoping that it's because of the lack of weapons, not because Tom Brady is not prepared and not able to perform at a high level. But, again, we have a bunch of weapons down there. We want to go out there and win. And I think combined with Bruce Arians and the security blanket of Gronk, it'll be a good situation for Tom Brady. But I want to ask Kevin this because when you're listening, you had Cam Newton as a franchise quarterback, but I also heard you say a couple times that he may not be the long-term answer for the Patriots. But, Kevin, do you think that right now you would take Cam Newton as your franchise quarterback compared to Tom Brady, who's won there in the past? Is that something that you see him as a franchise guy at this point? Because I know you were on the Jared the Javelin Stidham train for a very long time.
Well, you know, Brian, any port in the storm for Jarrett the Javelin. It was some rough waters in New England, and I saw Jarrett the Javelin, a beacon, and I swam to it and hung on with all my might. And then guess what happened? The USS Cam Newton came with it. Woo, woo! And I said, we are saved. We have our franchise quarterback. Look, I bought $700 worth of Cam Newton jerseys. I sent one to Nick Wright, which should be arriving soon. So I am all in on Cam Newton. If we could put up Nick's franchise quarterback. Nick, I'll ping the question to you. What does Cam need to do this year to move up, since you're a Patriots fan, to move up your rankings?
Listen, it's fair. I already have him. I think most people would have had Cam on the serviceable tier, not the franchise quarterback tier where I put him. So the only way to move up is superstar. And I would argue if he plays the full 16 healthy games and he gets the Patriots to an AFC championship game, which would have meant he's beaten of Lamar, Patrick, and Deshaun, one or two of them to get there, then I think he catapults himself. But to Brian's point, which I think is what he was getting at, no matter what Madden says, Patriot fans, if they are being honest with themselves, are more optimistic about quarterback play this year than they were in, say, November of last season. But maybe going into last season, they were super optimistic. But once you saw a dozen games of the 2019 Patriots, you said, man, we got to score on defense. We got to block a punt. Our offense can't move the ball through the air. My guess is Patriot fans, Jenna, are a little more bullish about their ability to win high-scoring shootouts, which they had no ability for last year.
I like it. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Brian Westbrook, thanks so much for hanging out with us. There you are over there. We got to go. Have a great day, everyone. See you tomorrow. Stay safe.